welcome everyone here today. We'll declare the agenda briefing open at 4:01. Members of the public are advised that recommendations to Council contained within this agenda can be subject to alteration. Applicants and other interested parties should refrain from taking any action until such time as written advice is received confirming Council's decision with respect to any particular issue. Any statement or insinuation of approval regarding any planning or development application made during an agenda briefing session is not to be taken as notice of approval from the Shire. The Shire advises that anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by Council regarding the application. An audio and or visual record will be made of these proceedings to assist in the taking of minutes. Acknowledgement of Country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures and to elders both past and present. Item 2, record of apologies and leave of absence. I have apologies from Councillor Coleman, Councillor Boylan, Councillor Crispin, and I imagine Councillor Cavoni would be another one. Item 3, declarations of members and officers' personal interests. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had two impartialities. 5.2.4, the Local Roads Community Infrastructure Program Phase 3, listed on that is Brunswick Rec Ground for additional parking. I'm a committee member of the Brunswick Agricultural Society. And also 5.5.2, the award nominees for the Australia Day Awards. 2 of the nominees are known for me and the organisation I'm involved with, so impartiality, and I'll stay in chambers for both things.
Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Mr. President. Just an impartiality interest on item 5.5.2, Australia Day Awards. I know 2 of the nominees through community events and advisory group membership. I will stay in and judge it on its merits for today.
Councillor Jackson.
I can't see one listed there for me. I sent it this afternoon. It's not there. So I have an impartiality interest in 5.2.3, tender T112021 Cathedral Avenue. I have family members living on that road, and I'll step out of chambers for that.
Councillor Lovett.
Thank you. As per the screen, item 5.1.4, the Australian Community Precinct. I'm employed adjacent to that site, and so I will leave chambers for the duration of that item. And also 5.5.1, the National Leisure Centre Court expansion. I'm a Shire representative on that committee, but I will stay in chambers and judge on its merits.
Councillor Beach.
Yeah, just an amendment to 5.52 there. It's partially right, it's probably the way I wrote it. I made the submission on behalf of the nominee for that, for one of the awards, and another member of the, another nominee is also known to me, so 2 members are known to me, and I made one of the submissions. And 5.5.3, Brunswick River Cottages, I'm a delegate, council's delegate to the committee, both impartiality and vote on their merits.
And I have an impartiality interest on 5.5.2, the Australia Day Awards, as 5 of the applicants I know, so I'll vote on its merits and stay in the chambers. Okay, item 4, deputations. We have a few today, so Mrs. Patani, would you like to go first?
Good afternoon. Further to my original deputation requesting a deferral of decision until November now, we've now requested a deferral until March and cited the following reasons. Our consultant has advised that further time is required to prepare and submit a suite of meaningful additional information in support of the application. This information relates to addressing planning and environmental matters as raised in the Shire's 26th of October agenda report. Southwest Environmental, on behalf of Patani Produce, is progressing a clearing permit and Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, blah blah blah, referral with DWER. DWER has not progressed with its assessment of the environmental applications, which includes consideration of suitable offsets and undertaking a detailed environmental assessment of the proposal. It's anticipated that the additional time to the 31st of March will be sufficient for DWER to provide in-principle agreement to a series of environmental offsets and to make progress on its environmental assessment. We would like additional time to engage with the Shire of Harvey and with residents that made submissions during the advertising period in an attempt to resolve outstanding issues, and the deferral will not prejudice the Shire of Harvey. We noted that the Planning Department's response in the briefing notes was to recommend our request for a deferral be declined due to the following 3 reasons, as we understand it. Impact on residents who would be in limbo for at least an additional 5 months. A determination on this application by Council is independent of DWER's assessment of the clearing permit, as it considers local planning framework. It is considered that the additional information to be provided in March will not alter the officer's recommendation. In response to the Planning Officer's recommendation and in support of our application, I would like to provide the following comments. With regard to reason 1, I understand that the delay will draw this matter out for a longer period than the residents were prepared for, and we apologise for this. I think it is important, though, that the councillors take into consideration that a delay now is hopefully a better outcome for everybody in the long term. We believe that the objections raised by the various stakeholders can, with consultation and consideration by all parties, be dispelled, addressed, negotiated or mitigated. A refusal to defer, and one would presume a subsequent refusal of our development application, will begin a longer process of another application being lodged and or referral of the matter to the State Administration Tribunal. Both of these options will take considerably more time and only cause more angst for everybody concerned. More time spent now on consultation and collaboration with all stakeholders will save everybody time, money and angst in the long term. I noted when a resident remarked on our previous application in 2013 not being proceeded with, and asked during his deputation what had changed. The Planning Department's response was a very emphatic nothing has changed. I would like to clarify that our original application was not proceeded with due to personal health issues that I experienced, and therefore my inability to proceed with the application. In the subsequent years, we've put much thought into our options with these properties and have determined recently that the properties need to be developed in some way. They are only declining in their general repair and degrading in an environmental sense. We are therefore of the mindset to progress this matter until an acceptable resolution can be found. The situation cannot remain as it is. We have attempted to create a civil and harmonious environment for our family and employees, but this is often interrupted by less than pleasant behaviour from the neighbouring estates. There have been death threats and nuisance correspondence. Obviously, none of the stakeholders are happy as the situation stands. Reason 2, which was given, is noted, but the actions that will be negotiated with DWER may have an impact on our negotiations with the Planning Department of the Shire. We have to develop a blueprint that considers all parties and stakeholders' needs, desires and wants. Reason 3, you don't know what you don't know. Whilst the Planning Department may have preconceived ideas on which they do not believe they will be swayed, I would hope that both the Planning Department and the councillors will keep an open mind in consideration of any additional information that is sourced and supplied. We should be afforded the respect and the opportunity to develop our farming operation, which reflects the purpose and existing industries in a considered way. In closing, I would like to address the elephant in the room. The approval of these subdivisions has been problematic to all involved. We are all left to deal with the impacts of past decisions. I don't know for sure, but I don't think any of us here were involved with those decisions. We would like to involve all parties in working together towards an outcome which everyone can live with. We may not all get exactly what we want. In fact, I suggest that no one will. But by working together, we should be able to find a resolution to an issue which has plagued the Shire since the mid-90s and caused all parties nothing but angst.
Thank you, Penny. Now, Mr. Graham and Mrs. Kerry Scott.
It's just me. I had made a submission concerning the effects of the proposed vegetation clearing and subsequent market gardens with regard to our roofs, which of course is our water collection. But on further reflection, I thought about the lake. Now, we're in Lot 17, which backs right onto the lake. The lake is a home to considerable bird life, birds, water birds. There's been nesting musk ducks, swamp hens and recently spoonbills. And so my great concern is that with the clearing of the properties and any subsequent market gardens being established is the dust, the fertilisers, fungicides, pesticides, herbicides that can go through the air. The winds down there are so strong that this would just blow into the lake, and I'm concerned about the integrity of the lake. At the moment, it is pristine, as we were assured by our environmental specialist last year, or earlier this year, I should say. And so we want to keep it that way so that the birds keep coming, and that it is, to be enjoyed, but particularly by the wildlife. So that's my deputation at the moment, is mostly about the bird life of freshwater lakes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Paul Welsh, also on item 5.3.1.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, councillors. I'm here, as you know, to talk about the clearing of lots 4 and 8. And I'm embarrassed to say that my concern initially was dust. And as that lady just spoke about, the impact of that. I then read this report, and much to my embarrassment, I did not realise that the clearing of these blocks are going to have such a significant impact on the area. The content of this cannot be diluted by any other report or what anybody says. There's been a lot of work goes into this, and it's a very valid and credible account or piece of paper. I'll move on a little bit just to go through some points. One issue that is not included in this, and I would like to bring it up, is with Lot 6, which is the lot between the Rembrandt Estate and the Forest Highway, if you're all familiar with that. Most of the trees on that block are near the highway. And from where we are in Rembrandt, we can actually see through the trees vehicles going up and down on the highway. The noise of vehicles during the day, I will say, is acceptable, if any noise is. But it is acceptable. Trucks, different story. The issue that hasn't been mentioned here, and I just want to bring to the surface, is with 117 trees being cut down and the clearing of that block, those trees act as a buffer and give us privacy from the road. We will now be exposed, as you come down to the Crooked Carrot, those couple of kilometres, we will be completely exposed to that highway. It will be like living beside a freeway. And add to that, as I say, the trees act as a bit of a buffer. The trucks are a problem. Again, it's something we've got to live with. And remember, those trucks go through in their multitude at night, and it will impact on the whole estate. And I'm naturally concerned that 117 trees are going to be taken down. It is mentioned in here as regards Lot 8, where that has been developed, and again I'm relying that you know what I'm talking about, along Rig Road down to Lakeside, and then on the left you've got Kookaburra Close. That is Lot 8 in there. There's 119 trees to go in there, and it's a good job that we weren't talking about this a few weeks ago, because I think Harvey would have got a mention at the Glasgow conference. Anyway, that block, that Lot 8, where it ends, that is the back of what's the the other grower, Castro. That's where Castro's property comes up to, and that stretches from the mile up Harvey Road right up to his shed, which is off Rig Road. That block, Lot 8, that acts actually as a barrier for us. And if that is removed, can you imagine the amount of dust that will go up through Castro's land and then onto this new block that's been developed? And the recommendation that's been asked for is 30 metres. 30 metres from the side of Rig Road to where the growing starts. And 10 of those metres is Rig Road. So actually it's from the fence line to where the growth starts is 20 metres. My understanding with residential country is 300 metres, which they're happy to do on Lot 6. But on Lot 8, they want to be 20 metres from the fence line. I'm sorry, that is just not acceptable. A little bit of history about Remlat. 9 years ago, after I moved there and built my house, there consisted on the Remlat estate 9 homes. Today there are 19 homes and 6 under construction. There is approximately 40 blocks still available, and my understanding is that they are all sold bar 2. This is going to develop into a major residential area of approximately 70 homes. Thus this clearing has to be stopped now, because if it's allowed to go, you can't turn around and fix it in years to come. It's got to have a stop now on it. I believe there would be actually more development there than what there is at the moment. Part of the reason was round the lake there was a sewerage problem, and it ended up, as far as I've been stood, that everything was actually okay, but it was just a signature and a stamp from the government, and everything in that area has been fixed, so development now can go ahead. Another issue at the moment, as you would be well aware of, is one person in Remland has been told after 3 months of waiting for his house building to start, it may be another 6 months before it commences. And this is just a fact of what's happening in our world at the moment. Another lady has had her concrete pad down for over 2 months now. The builder cannot tell her when the building will start. But in 5 to 7 years, I guarantee Remlat is going to become a substantial residential area. 236 trees to go. Again, I repeat, that is not substantial. Now, after all that negative talk, something positive has come out of this. We, the residents, are so worried and concerned about this that the way our world is at the moment, a lot of people don't know their next door neighbour. And what has happened with us is, because we're all sharing the same fears and concerns, everybody that lives there have actually got together and discussed it, and we've developed into a community. And we now have young kids living there with parents. God forbid that I say this, but it is fantastic to see them running around and hearing them. So, you know, you're placing them in danger as well. I close by saying yet again, this document is bulletproof. No one is going to change what is in there, the facts that are in there. And in reply to what was said before by the person that's wanting this delay, the last Shire meeting we spoke like this. Next thing is we're told it's deferred. We walked out all outside, looked at each other and went, what's happened? We then read that there's been a request for deferral to next March. Now, the reality is, next March, something is presented. You guys have to digest it, look through it, answer it. Let's be honest, it's going to be the middle of 2022 before you get there. On that basis, we, the residents, wish to say we request that a deferral is not accepted, and what we are saying is, please stand up, take a vote, yes or no, and we will live with the consequences. But we can't go on the way we're going at the moment and what we're feeling for the next 9 months. We are stressed over this. We're talking about our homes. People are talking about their kids. The concern of water going into the water tanks. Please, let's sort this out and put it to bed. Thank you.
Mrs. Judith Robertson.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, councillors. There's been, I've come to I've come to one of these, and I was on the site watching the last one. The lakes have been referred to as man-made lakes. If you take a drive through there at the moment, there are a number of ponds, lakes that are full, that dry up during summer. Generally January, they've dried up. I made a phone call today to the Perth Zoo in regard to the rehabilitation of the Western Swamp tortoise that was thought to be extinct back in 1953. They have been doing a breeding program and have reintroduced 600 of these tortoise back into the wild. Not saying that we have the Western Swamp tortoise. We actually do have the long-necked turtle, the snake necks, in those lakes. In January, they make a romp over to the big lake that's on Lakeside Drive. Their biggest threat is pollutants such as fertilisers and detergents and the draining of the water table. So I just want to
ask you to take that into consideration when you make your decision, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Robertson.
Mr. President, councillors, welcome back. Saw you last month, but I'll be here again. Just a couple of clarifications and informations, really. My first one is on buffer zones. Again, just looking for information in regards, where does the buffer zone start? Obviously from proposed market gardens. And is it the estate boundary? Is it the residential boundary, or is it the residential dwelling? As per the 300 metre request for lot 6 from the EPA and the Health Authority, can anyone enlighten me on that one, please? So all the freshwater lakes, people know what we're in for? Can anyone help me on that?
It is only deputations, Bill, but would you like to clear it up while we're here,
Okay.
Mr. Hall, please? Might just help.
Through Mr. Chairman, look, that's fine. Look, buffer zones are actually defined in two different ways. They can be from property boundary to property boundary, which is what the current separation distances, how they're actually defined. You could also take them from point source to point source. So you could actually take it from someone's residence, or you could actually take it from the edge of the actual horticultural activity as well. So there's two ways of actually measuring it.
Am I able to ask which one applies here?
No, look,
Okay.
we can follow that up.
Okay,
later
please,
if
yeah.
you like.
No,
Yeah.
I'd really like a clarification of that, because that has a lot of bearing on the application at the moment as to where we actually sit in the mix of it. And the other one that I would like to ask is, in regards to buffer zones again, who actually regulates them? Once if the application is approved, clearing, and we start getting into the development of the market gardens, etc., who actually regulates that the buffer distance is enforced? Again?
Yeah, I'm happy, Bill, if you want to submit the questions, and
Okay.
I can give them to staff and we can have them answered
Great.
at the meeting, if you're happy with that.
Yeah,
And
fine,
I
yeah.
can probably chase it up
No,
a bit
it's-
earlier and distribute it to you before the next meeting, so at least
Yeah,
it's clarified for
that's
everyone.
that's mine. Thanks very much for
That's fine.
listening again. No,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
And Joe Rataka on item 5.3.1.
Thank you, Shire President and Council. I want to try and stay brief. I want to say I object to the deferral and this application as it stands. I would also like to apologize to the Patanis over any problems that some of our residents might have caused them. That is not the majority of us, and I'm terribly sorry that you've suffered from it. We believe we can find a coexistence with the Patanis, an agreeable method for them to develop and us to enjoy our lifestyle around our lake and at Kookaburra Close. My house is on lot 50, Lakeside Drive, so it's probably one of the further away ones from the development land. So it's sort of, we're got a bit more buffer than other people. But I still want to protect the lake. The lake is a priority for us. This is why my wife and I bought our property there, to enjoy that lake. The lake is beautiful. We spend a lot of time, effort trying to maintain that lake. Our wildlife, our aquatic life is what we enjoy. We like to watch the swans. We like to watch the pelicans and all the bird life. So, like I said, I would like to object to the deferral. But I think if the Patanis would like to get together with a group from the owners, we might be able to come up with a compromise that would be mutually agreeable. Thank you.
Now, Miss Natalie Whittaker, you're listed as wishing to do a deputation first.
I'll pass on
You pass?
speaking,
Okay.
but I do agree with the Robertsons and Graham and Kerry and Paul.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's no more deputations. We'll move on to item 5, officers' reports. Item 5.1, Chief Executive Officer. Item 5.1.1, Quarterly Report, Quarter 1, 2021-2022. Any questions, councillors?
I'd just like to draw council's attention to the very first quarterly report against our corporate business plan that's been presented to council. It's something that we have been working on and wanted to present to council for quite some time, and we're fortunate that council resourced a corporate and community engagement officer, and part of that position is to develop this reporting. So against all of our strategies and actions, there will be progress milestones and also commentary, and then that information is fed through to the report. So we do have Chesson Rintoul, who is the officer who has developed this report, who's here to answer any questions, or if it's specifically related to the progress of an item, then the officer will answer that query directly, just so you're aware. And thanks for all your work, Chesson, on this one. It's a very good result.
All good? So the questions submitted are Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you. I did send through some questions, but I think they've been adequately answered by staff's response. Thank you.
Okay, we're all happy, councillors? Okay, item number 5.1.2, delegations review. Any questions? Councillor Birch.
I've got a bunch of them. It's very simple. Just very simple ones, Mr. President. It's just for my own benefit, really. Delegation 1.110, performing functions outside the district. An example we provided where this might occur, why we would go outside the district. I'm thinking bushfires actually now, I can think about it, but
okay, through the President, yes, so bushfires would be a great example. A scenario I came up with was if we think of the Waroona Yarloop, if we were doing works near our boundary, such as putting through a massive fire break, we're right at the boundary, so check with the owner, continue it through, and yeah, we're fine.
yeah, thank you. The next one is 1.1.11, damage incurred when performing executive functions. Again, some examples. Are we talking about administrative damage or workforce damage?
Through the President, so this would be more physical work. So, for example, preparing for the Udark Road and Forestry Road realignment, surveyor's been on private land. If he put his survey peg in and punch it through an irrigation pipe, then we've got that ability to pay that compensation.
Yeah, and this would go for, say, a stone thrown up by a lawnmower, broken windscreen or damage to...
potentially, yeah. Some of those come under our insurance. But yeah,
okay, thank you.
There would be circumstances.
1.124 rate record amendment. What reasons are there to amend the rate record for 5 years preceding the current financial year?
So through the President again. So an example of this one would be if a landowner had changed the use of their property and hadn't notified the Shire, and that change had an impact on the rate, we would have the ability to go back 5 years, adjust that.
Thank you. Number 26, recovery of rate services and charges. Does this delegation apply to auction on the property subject to default of payment?
No, not this particular delegation.
Okay, so I'll take it to 28, and it's the same question for the rates, recovery of rates, debt, action take possession of the land.
Yes, so that particular delegation would allow the selling of the land by public auction. So in this particular scenario, officers would notify council if this action was to be taken. If it's council's preference, a condition can be included requiring that prior to using this delegation, council is notified.
Yeah, and that was going to be my follow-up. Would you be prepared to do that? Because I think, you know, staff taking this upon themselves to go to auction with someone's land is a fairly big step. And I think council should probably be, I know I'm making a comment now, probably should be next week. 2.1.8, referral and issuing of certificates. Why would we issue a certificate when the land is not located in the Shires district?
So as a permit authority, we cannot issue these certificates for our own land. So this delegation would allow our building surveyors to issue these certificates for other local governments. For example, Shire of Dardanup could request that we issue their certificate for them.
So we can't do that ourselves? So
we can't issue our own
to get somebody. Yeah, I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And kennel establishments, 5.1.9, in the event the staff refuse a kennel application, should council be required to make a formal resolution in the first instance after refusal, rather than the applicant go straight to SAT to argue the refusal?
Yes, so as with some of our planning delegations, we have delegation to approve but not always refuse. So again, this is if council would prefer this one to be amended to not include refusal.
I think it's an easier step for the applicant if it was refused to come to council first rather than go to SAT. Yeah, that's it for my delegations. No questions on the delegations. Thank you. Thank you for your answers.
Any other queries, councillors? Councillor Bromwell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mine was just on 2110 smoke alarms, and I wondered about the alternate and battery power. Where would that be used in relation to smoke alarms, and who's going to give us that type of information to make sure that it's appropriate?
I'll need to take that one on notice and check that with our building surveyors.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, item 5.1.3, Behaviour Complaints Committee member nominations. Any questions? Item 5.1.4, Australian Community Precinct consultation and workshop outcomes. You want to step out?
Yep.
Yep. Any questions or queries, councillors? All good, Councillor Campbell?
I just have a couple, thank you. In the report, it refers to going back to the consultant for a feasibility study on the two sites. Is that actually going to, do we actually need to do that? I thought we were just at the stage where we would go out to the community for consultation on the two sites. but I thought I read in the report that you were talking about going back to the consultant, or did I read that wrong?
No, through the President, no. As far as I remember, we said it would just be the 2 sites.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
So going to the consultant is only to get further information so that we can get out to the get that information out to the public.
And looking at the timing, is there any chance of, do you feel comfortable with the 6 weeks consultation? Do you think that's too long? Can we shorten that, bearing in mind it's also over December, January as well,
Yes.
so it's not the best time to be doing.
It's not the best time, and that's why we have given it a little bit longer. So we have given it 6 weeks again.
But having said that, it's totally open to councillors if they wish to shorten or extend the period. We'll be guided by councillors' opinions as to what is best.
Any other questions? Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr Chair. So the consultation will be similar to before. It'll be pop-ups, survey online and advertising through all media, is that correct?
So the communications team will probably be able to answer that better, but they did say they were going to rethink it and actually come up with a whole new strategy for this public consultation. Kirsty, would you like to?
Thank you, and through the President as well. A new consultation methodology would need to be designed because it's an entirely new process, of which we would be guided by the decision through Council as to how we approach that. We would naturally take into account Council's endorsed engagement policy, as well as previous consultation approaches as well. Just in regards to the timeframes, the last time we did consult, it was over the same period of time frame from December through to February as well. So we would acknowledge all of that in the methodology.
Any other further questions? Thanks, Vicky. Item 5.2, Infrastructure Services. Item 5.2.1, application for exemption to keep more than the prescribed number of dogs. This is a confidential attachment. Are there any questions wish to be asked? This one. Neil? Item 5.2.2. So is a confidential attachment 1, the promenade extension. Are there any questions councillors may wish to ask?
Yeah, if I may, I've made some notes and then forgot to write it on my thing. And I know there's a confidential attachment and I won't mention anything that's in there. Except to say that other grants have been listed. Are we able to get a list of where those grants are coming from? Apart from the 2 that are quite obvious.
Yes, I can provide that.
Thank you.
Okay, all happy? 5.2.3, tender T112021, Cathedral Avenue upgrade and shared path. Any detailed questions or responses? This also is a confidential attachment. Or any other Neil? Okay, item 5.2.4, Local Roads Community Infrastructure Program Phase 3. And there is an addendum to this item, councillors. So what did you wish to...
Look, through the chair, there's a bit of an error in the report. Initially, on page 43 of the report, we talked about a project being traffic signals on Old Coast Road, pedestrian crossing. Given the proposal to look at Australind and the other site for the admin centre, we thought it might be prudent to defer this project until we know what we're doing down there, and consider other projects which looks at bus shelters, access improvements. I know that the Australind National Advisory Group, there's been a lot of requests for bus shelters and access improvements, and we thought we could incorporate some artwork into the bus shelters, and also provision of seating along paths, and some interpretive signage to, and we look at it mainly like the path along Old Coast Road, look for a seat every 400 metres or so, so an elderly can sit in the shady spot. We've got a lot of paths and we need some seating and shade, so that's what we're proposing instead.
Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Wasn't that supposed to happen with that path along the estuary anyway? Wasn't there supposed to be interpretive historical signage as part of that?
Yes, there was, councillor, and obviously you know, we spend all the money building paths and doing landscaping and things like that, and I suppose this will complement some of that work that was supposed to have happened.
Any other questions, councillors? Item 5.3, Sustainable Development. 5.3.1, Proposed Vegetation Clearing, Place of Landscape Value and Horticulture, Lot 6 and 8, Rig Road, Myla. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Jackson.
In relation to the zoning, delegations referred to this as residential land. Can we get an update on the status of the current zoning of the site?
I'm assuming you're referring, councillor,
to the
Freshwater Lakes?
Yeah, the
yes,
residential.
There still is a short stay restriction over the top of that, both Kookaburra and over Freshwater Lakes. However, council many years ago decided not to enforce the short stay provisions in Kookaburra, so allowing people to live there permanently. We do have a draft application for rezoning to remove that short stay restriction around within Freshwater Lakes, and a reference to why hasn't more development been approved or constructed in that area is generally to do with that short stay restriction. Both the West Australian Planning Commission and previous administration here have agreed to remove it, but they needed to resolve the issue of the effluent disposal because it was designed for a reduced input, because they were supposed to be short stay accommodation. Going to a permanent accommodation increases the loading, and the Department of Health has now actually recently approved that facility to be able to accommodate for all lots to be used for permanent accommodation.
So the current system has the capacity, is that what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, item 5.3.2, Proposed Extractive Industry Sand, Lot 4, Runningmead Road, Wellesley. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr Chair. If this was to get approved and the clearing of the trees was approved, would they have to provide offset in order to do that?
Through Mr Chair, given the scale of clearing that would be required, I would consider that some form of offset would definitely be required. The property itself is still quite large, and they do have some other vegetation in the rest of the property, so that might actually just be locking up some of their existing, or they may need to find some stuff off-site. So, but that's not a decision that the Shire makes.
Any other questions? Okay, item number 5.3.3, use not listed, rural tourism, lot 101, number 124, Government Road, Rowlands. Any questions? Item 5.3.4, use not listed, catering, lot 1, Rogers Road, Uduck. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Beach.
Yes, a very technical one for the author. I note that the name in the header box, the proponent, is the Shire of Harvey, and I would have thought it should have been either time and place or the proponent's names. And thank you for your email.
A technical answer as well, then yes, you're correct, sir, yes.
I just want to let you know I do read your reports.
Wonderful.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, item 5.3.5, shed conversion to a dwelling at lot 302, number 7 Gardner Road, Gardner Street, Rowlands. Any questions? Councillor Jackson.
Is this a retrospective approval? Is it already being used as a dwelling?
Through Mr. Chairman, my understanding is no, that it's not being used as a dwelling at the moment, no.
Any other questions, councillors? Item number 5.3.6, shed conversion to a dwelling, lot 1047 Black Rock Road, Yarloop. Councillor Jackson.
Same question.
Same answer, councillor?
Yep.
That's right.
They look very much like they're already fitted out before approval.
I will take the previous one because I know that there has been some periodic use of it, but I don't think it's been full time.
Any further questions, councillors? Item 5.4, corporate services. 5.4.1, financial statements as at 31st of October 2021. Any questions or queries, councillor? Item 5.4.2, listing of accounts paid, October 2021. Any questions or queries?
He's too intimidating, he's sitting so close now.
Item 5.5, community and lifestyle. 5.5.1, tender T092021, Leisure Centre Court expansion, design, development and documentation. Councillor Beach.
Yeah, just one. In the budget implications, it said the state government has provided an allocation to support the activity. My question is, will the state government be making up the shortfall in full?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair, that is correct. The Shire and State Government are currently drafting an FAA for 250, which is the shortfall.
Any other questions, councillors? Item 5.5.2 Australia Day Awards. Any questions or queries? Item number 5.5.3, Brunswick River Cottages Stage 3 funding application. Councillor Burgoyne.
Yeah, I just need to declare an impartiality interest in this. I'm council delegate of the committee, so stay in chambers and discuss it.
Thank you, Councillor Burgoyne. Noted. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Dickinson.
What's the financial return to the Shire on the completion of the development?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair, this wasn't a particularly easy question to answer. We do have a Brunswick River Cottages Business Case 3, which gave us the economic impact from construction through to consumption, of which I can read out what's in that business case for you. It's anticipated that the economic return on investment for council investing in this project, which was costed on the original $4.4 million project, not the additional 1.2, is $9.56 million through supply and construction, an additional $3.2 million through supply and consumption phase, $1.792 million in construction wages and salaries, over $1 million in wages and salaries over the next 30 years, and 7 to 10 direct employment construction as well. What the business case doesn't tell us is the social return on investment, and I can provide you with a link to some recent studies on the social return on investment from the aged care sector for Western Australia more broadly, just noting that this is the 12 units in Brunswick and you need to scale it down accordingly.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, item 6, notice of motion for the following meeting. So that's nil.
Oh,
sorry.
Sorry, I did put one through at the last council meeting.
That's correct.
Was it meant to appear in here or does it appear in the agenda?
It will appear in the agenda. It probably should have appeared as part of the agenda briefing document, but yes, it will definitely be part of the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll let you finish it lolly now, Councillor Beach.
I thought I'd finished.
Okay, item 7 will be matters behind closed doors. So if we ask the public and staff not required to please leave the chambers, and thank you for your attendance today. Okay, so thank everyone for their attendance, and we will close the meeting at 5:36. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week for the ordinary council meeting.